Welcome to English Through Ideas, where we learn English through powerful ideas. I'm really excited to guide you through today's explainer because, well, we're going to unravel one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. I want you to imagine a time of towering palaces, beautiful golden treasures, and a highly advanced, globally connected society. This was the late Bronze Age, but then, right around the 12th century BC, it all experienced a sudden and catastrophic end. By that, I mean total and complete destruction. Great civilizations that had stood for centuries simply vanished. So how did this happen?
Okay, let's dive right into this with a pretty chilling quote from the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses III. He wrote this on the walls of his temple, and it paints a terrifying picture of an unstoppable apocalyptic force wiping out empires. He described a massive wave of attackers sweeping across the known world, literally destroying everything in their path before finally reaching the borders of Egypt.
And this brings us to the core of our historical detective story. The big question we need to ask today is, was this golden age of civilization actually slaughtered by a group of mysterious attackers? Or is the truth much more complex? To grow our English vocabulary, and to really understand how human societies function, let's start gathering some clues.
Section 1. Enter the Sea Peoples. We have to start our investigation with our prime suspects. This was a shadowy group of invaders that 19th century Egyptologists named the Sea Peoples. But, the Egyptians themselves never actually used that exact term. Instead, they listed specific, foreign-sounding groups.
Now, what's really interesting here is how we can break down the different groups within this alliance. It shows that they likely came from a wide variety of Mediterranean islands and coasts. For example, scholars believe the Peliset are the biblical Philistines, originally from Crete. The Sheridan might be linked to the island of Sardinia, and the Shekelesh to Sicily. The Luca came from modern-day Turkey. So this wasn't just one single nation attacking. It was a massive mixed group of people on the move.
Section 2. The Egyptian Defense. To really understand how terrifying these invaders were, we need to look at New Kingdom Egypt. They were the one empire that actually survived this time period and carved their story into stone. While the mighty Hittite Empire fell, and the great cities of Greece burned to the ground, Egypt stood its ground.
Look at these amazing ancient carvings. They brilliantly show us just how diverse the attackers were. You can clearly see the different groups marked by their clothing. Some are sporting feathered headdresses, while others are wearing skull caps or even horned helmets. They didn't have a uniform. And here's a crucial detail. They came in boats, sure, but they also came in ox carts with their families. They looked like a desperate mass of humanity.
Now, if you look really closely at these intense naval battles from 1177 BC, there's a fascinating military detail. You'll notice the invaders' ships have no oars visible. The sails are up, but no one is rowing. This suggests the Egyptians might have caught them completely by surprise. They likely set up a devastating ambush right on the shores of the Nile Delta, trapping the Sea People's ships near the coast where they just couldn't maneuver.
So, the most important point here is that while Ramses III claimed a massive victory in 1177 BC, just like an earlier pharaoh had done 30 years prior, it was what we call a Pyrrhic victory. In English, a Pyrrhic victory is a win that hurts you so badly and takes such a terrible toll that it's almost as bad as a defeat. Yes, Egypt survived, but it was left as a shadow of its former self, slowly losing its power over the next century.
Section 3. A perfect storm of disasters. Just as we're ready to blame the Sea Peoples for the destruction of the ancient world, modern science introduces a massive plot twist. It turns out, history is rarely as simple as the bad guys arrived and destroyed everything.
We really have to ask ourselves an important psychological question here. If these tribes were just organized, bloodthirsty pirates, why were they bringing their kids and wagons to a war zone? It's highly likely they were actually desperate families, fleeing an invisible killer that was destroying their homelands. They might have been victims long before they ever became invaders.
This new theory completely shifts the blame away from the Sea Peoples. It reveals them as merely a symptom of a much, much larger disaster. Think of it like a sickness. The Sea Peoples were the cough, but they weren't the disease itself. They were migrating eastward because they simply had no other choice if they wanted to survive. The real killers were environmental. Modern data from deep layers of Earth reveal a brutal 300-year megadrought. Just imagine year after year of no rain. This caused massive, widespread famine. On top of that, geologists have found evidence of a 50-year earthquake storm, a terrifying sequence of continuous earthquakes that literally shattered the cities of the Mediterranean. Starving and terrified, the local peasants naturally began to rebel against their own kings. Section 4.
The domino effect. These natural disasters set the stage for our final revelation, explaining exactly how a few bad harvests could erase entire empires from the map. This is where we learn a really powerful idea about how human systems are built.
This brings us to an incredible concept, general systems collapse theory. Now that sounds complicated, but it basically means that when a system becomes extremely complex and highly connected, it also becomes incredibly fragile. These ancient kingdoms traded copper from Cyprus, tin from Afghanistan, and grain from Egypt. They relied on each other perfectly, but that perfection was their weakness.
Because these states were so interdependent, a drought in one region meant no grain, right? Well, no grain meant you couldn't pay your armies. Those unpaid armies either rebelled or became pirates. Then the trade routes stopped, which halted bronze production, meaning no tools or weapons could be made. Ultimately, this led to total systemic failure. When one link in the supply chain broke, the entire system shattered like glass.
Look how fast the dominoes fell. Within just a few decades, earthquakes ruined the cities, droughts ruined the farms, and desperate refugees took to the waters. This proves that it wasn't just a group of invading warriors that plunged humanity into a dark age. It was a combination of extreme environmental stress and a complete supply chain collapse. It was the perfect storm.
As we conclude this explainer, we have to look at our own highly interconnected, globalized world. Today, we rely on complex international trade for our food, our technology, our medicine. So what can we learn from this ancient collapse? For me, it's a powerful reminder that complexity requires resilience. We have to build systems and personal habits that can survive stress. Thank you for learning with English through ideas. If you enjoyed this explainer, please subscribe for more ideas, more English, and more growth.